The moment their eyes finally met, everything changed. What began as an embarrassing encounter between strangers on a sun-drenched beach would transform into something neither of them saw coming, a journey that would heal two broken hearts and create a family where once there were only fragments. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected love and second chances, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming content that reminds us all that sometimes life's most beautiful chapters begin with awkward first sentences. Mark Sullivan hadn't meant to stare. He really hadn't. But after 3 years of being a single dad, 3 years of parent-teacher conferences, princess tea parties, and late-night fever watches, he'd forgotten how to interact with an attractive woman. Especially one wearing a swimsuit that left little to the imagination. "Eyes are up here," she said, her voice carrying a hint of amusement rather than the annoyance he'd expected. Mark's face burned as he snapped his gaze upward, meeting eyes the color of the ocean behind her, a deep, mesmerizing blue that somehow managed to be both warm and guarded at the same time. "I'm so sorry," he stammered, wishing the sand would open up and swallow him whole. "I wasn't. I didn't mean to." A small hand tugged at his swim trunks. "Daddy, who's that lady?" His 6-year-old daughter Lily peered up at the woman, her curious eyes wide beneath the brim of her pink sun hat. Mark had never been more grateful for his daughter's impeccable timing. "I don't know, sweetheart," he answered honestly. The woman's expression softened as she looked at Lily. "I'm Emma. I live in the blue house just up the beach." She pointed to a weathered cottage perched on the dunes about 100 yards away. "I've seen you two building sandcastles from my deck." Mark was stunned. He and Lily had been coming to this stretch of beach every weekend for months, and he'd never noticed anyone watching them from that little blue house. Then again, he rarely noticed anything beyond his daughter these days. "I'm Lily, and this is my daddy," his daughter announced proudly. "He's a firefighter, and he saves people, but sometimes he's sad because mommy went to heaven." Mark winced. Lily had developed a habit of introducing him this way to strangers, a painfully accurate summary of their life since Sarah's car accident 3 years ago. Emma's smile faltered for just a moment. "It's nice to meet you both." "I'm sorry about your mommy, Lily." "It's okay. Daddy says she's watching us from the stars now." Lily pointed to the half-built sandcastle behind them. "Do you want to help us? Daddy's not very good at making the towers stay up." Before Mark could intervene, Emma was already nodding. "I'd love to. I happen to be something of a sandcastle architect." And just like that, Emma joined their Saturday morning ritual. Mark watched in amazement as she helped Lily construct an elaborate fortress, complete with a moat and seashell decorations. Her hands moved with practiced precision, and when Lily asked why she was so good at building sandcastles, Emma's answer caught him off guard. "I used to build them with my son," she said, her voice steady but with an undercurrent of something that made Mark pay closer attention. "He loved the beach." "Where's your son now?" Lily asked with a child's innocent directness. Emma's hand stilled for just a moment. "He's with his dad in California." The way she said it, with such careful neutrality, told Mark there was much more to that story. He recognized the tone, he'd used it himself countless times when strangers asked about Lily's mother. As the morning stretched into afternoon, Mark found himself relaxing in Emma's presence. She was easy to talk to, quick to laugh at Lily's jokes, and seemed genuinely interested in their lives. When Lily ran off to collect more shells, Mark finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had been on his mind. "So, do you always rescue awkward single dads who don't know where to look when talking to beautiful women?" Emma laughed, the sound carrying on the ocean breeze. "Only the ones who blush as spectacularly as you did." "Seriously, I thought your face might catch fire." "Not my finest moment," Mark admitted. "In my defense, it's been a while since I've talked to anyone who isn't 6 years old or a fellow firefighter." "How long?" Emma asked, her tone gentler now. 3 years, 2 months, and about 16 days, he answered without hesitation. Since Sarah died. Emma nodded, understanding in her eyes. For me, it's been 2 years since the divorce. 2 years since my ex-husband convinced a judge that his stable home in California was better for our son than my unstable career situation here. What do you do? Mark asked. I'm a marine biologist. I was offered a research position at the university here, which meant moving from California. My ex used the relocation against me in the custody battle. Her fingers absently traced patterns in the sand. I get Tyler for summers and holidays, but it's not enough. It's never enough, Mark agreed, thinking of how even having Lily with him every day couldn't fill the void Sarah's death had left in their lives. Their conversation was interrupted by Lily's triumphant return, arms full of shells and a starfish she'd rescued from the shoreline. Emma. Look what I found. Can we put it back in the water together? As Mark watched Emma gently explain to Lily how to safely return the starfish to the ocean, something shifted inside him, a loosening of the tight knot that had resided in his chest for 3 years. He couldn't name it yet, but it felt dangerously close to hope. That first meeting on the beach turned into regular Saturday sandcastle sessions. Emma began joining them for ice cream afterward, then for pizza dinners, and eventually for movie nights at Mark's modest home a few blocks from the shore. Lily adored her, and Mark found himself counting the hours between their meetings, something he hadn't done since his early days with Sarah. But there was a hesitancy to Emma that Mark couldn't quite break through. Just when he thought they were moving towards something more than friendship, she would pull back, creating distance with casual mentions of her son's upcoming visit or her research demands. It wasn't until a stormy night in October, 6 months after their first meeting, that Mark understood why. He'd invited Emma over for dinner after Lily had begged to show her the science project they'd been working on together. The evening had gone perfectly until Mark's phone rang with an emergency call from the station. There's a house fire on Ocean Drive, he explained, already reaching for his keys. The babysitter can't get here for at least 30 minutes. Go, Emma said without hesitation. I'll stay with Lily until the sitter arrives. Relief flooded through him. You're sure? Of course. Be careful, Mark. He'd kissed Lily goodbye, squeezed Emma's hand in thanks, and rushed out into the storm. The fire had been worse than expected, an old beach house fully engulfed, with reports of a teenager possibly trapped inside. Mark and his team had battled the flames for hours before finally getting the all-clear that no one had been in the house after all. It was nearly midnight when he returned home, soaked and smelling of smoke. To his surprise, Emma was still there, curled up on his couch with a book. The babysitter had called to say she couldn't make it through the flooded roads. You didn't have to stay, he said, touched by her thoughtfulness. I know. She set her book aside. But I wanted to make sure you got home safely. Something in her voice made him pause. Emma, what's wrong? She looked away, her profile illuminated by the soft lamp light. Watching you rush out that door tonight, it brought everything back. The fear, the waiting, the not knowing. Mark sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. What do you mean? My husband, ex-husband, is a firefighter too. The revelation hung in the air between them. That's why I moved here after the divorce. To get away from the constant reminders, the sirens, the smell of smoke on his clothes. And then you met me, Mark said quietly, understanding dawning. And then I met you. She finally turned to face him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I promised myself I would never fall for another firefighter, never put myself through that worry again. And then you and Lily came along with your sandcastles and your kind eyes, and you ruined all my plans. Mark's heart hammered in his chest. You've fallen for me? A single tear escaped, tracking down her cheek. How could I not? You're everything Jason wasn't, present, attentive, devoted to your daughter. But every time I let myself imagine a future with you, I see you running into burning buildings, and I can't breathe. Mark reached for her hand, relieved when she didn't pull away. "Emma, I can't promise you that my job isn't dangerous. But I can promise you that I will always do everything in my power to come home." "That's what Jason used to say," she whispered. "Did he break that promise?" She shook her head. "No. He broke others instead. He was never really there, even when he was physically present. The job always came first, before me, before Tyler. When I got the research offer here, he refused to even consider moving. Said his department needed him more than we did." Mark understood then that Emma's fear wasn't just about his safety, it was about history repeating itself, about giving her heart to someone whose first commitment would always be elsewhere. "I can't quit being a firefighter," he said honestly. "It's part of who I am. But Emma, Lily, and I have already lost someone we loved. We know how precious time is, how important it is to be present in the moments we have together. I would never take that for granted." She studied his face, searching for something. "And what about when Tyler visits? He's 8 now, still trying to understand why his family fell apart. I can't introduce more uncertainty into his life." "I would never ask you to," Mark assured her. "Whatever happens between us, it would include respecting what both our children need. We could take it slow, see how they get along. And if they don't? Then we figure it out together. That's what partners do." The word partners hung between them, full of possibility. Emma's expression softened, and she moved closer, closing the distance he'd carefully maintained. "I'm still scared," she admitted. "Me too," he confessed. "I haven't felt this way about anyone since Sarah. It terrifies me." "But," she prompted, sensing there was more. "But I think some things are worth being scared for." When she kissed him, it felt like coming home after a very long journey. Mark knew there would be challenges ahead, blending their families, navigating the complexities of co-parenting with Emma's ex, finding balance between his dangerous profession and their relationship. But for the first time in 3 years, he was looking forward to the future instead of just surviving the present. The following summer, Tyler came to stay with Emma for 2 months. Mark had worried about how the boy would react to his mother's new relationship, but he needn't have. Tyler and Lily bonded almost immediately over their shared love of the ocean and marine creatures. Emma's scientific knowledge and Mark's adventurous spirit combined to give the children a summer filled with tide pool explorations, snorkeling expeditions, and yes, increasingly elaborate sandcastles. On the last day of Tyler's visit, the 4 of them sat on the beach watching the sunset. The children were busy burying Mark's feet in the sand while Emma leaned against his shoulder. "I don't want to go back to Dad's," Tyler said suddenly, his young face serious. "I want to stay here with you, Mom. And with Mark and Lily." Emma's body tensed beside Mark. This was the conversation she'd been both hoping for and dreading all summer. "I know, sweetheart," she said carefully. "And I want that too. But there are a lot of grown-up things that need to be worked out first." "Like what?" Tyler persisted. Mark watched Emma struggle for the right words and decided to help. "Like making sure your dad understands how important it is for you to spend more time with your mom. And finding a way for everyone to be happy with the arrangement." Tyler considered this. "Dad's not happy anyway. He works all the time, and Sheila is always mad about it." Emma and Mark exchanged glances. Sheila was Jason's new wife, and from Tyler's occasional comments throughout the summer, it seemed their relationship was already showing strains similar to what had ended Emma's marriage. "Would your dad be open to talking about a new custody arrangement?" Mark asked gently. Tyler shrugged. "Maybe. He said I'm old enough now to have some say in where I live." Hope bloomed on Emma's face, but she tempered it quickly. "We'll talk to him when he comes to pick you up tomorrow, okay? But Tyler, no matter what happens, I want you to know that I love you, and I'm always here for you, even when we're apart." "I know, Mom." Tyler leaned against her. "And I like it here. Mark doesn't work as much as Dad, and he always plays with us when he's home. Mark felt a surge of emotion at the boy's words. Over the past year, he'd made conscious choices to reduce his overtime hours and prioritize his time with Lily and Emma. Hearing that Tyler had noticed the difference between his behavior and Jason's validated those choices. That night, after the children were asleep, Mark found Emma on the deck of her blue cottage, staring out at the moonlit ocean. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I'm afraid to hope," she admitted. "I've wanted Tyler with me for so long, but Jason has always had the upper hand legally. If I push too hard, we'll approach it carefully," Mark promised. "And whatever happens, we'll face it together." Emma turned in his arms, her expression serious. "When I met you on this beach last year, I never imagined we'd be here now. You and Lily have brought so much joy back into my life, Mark. And you've done the same for us." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Which is why I wanted to ask you something." Her eyes widened as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small shell. It wasn't a ring box as she might have expected, but a delicate spiral shell they'd found on their first day building sandcastles together. "I'm not proposing, not yet," he clarified. "I think we both need more time, and our kids need more time. But I wanted to give you this as a promise that when we're all ready, when the time is right, I want to build a life with you, Emma. A family with all four of us." Tears filled her eyes as she took the shell, running her finger along its smooth surface. "How did you keep this all this time?" "I've carried it in my wallet every day since we met," he admitted. "It reminded me that sometimes beautiful things wash up when you least expect them." Emma closed her hand around the shell, then reached up to kiss him deeply. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. "When the time is right, my answer will be yes." The next day brought a surprise that none of them had anticipated. When Jason arrived to pick up Tyler, he didn't come alone. His new wife Sheila was with him, looking uncomfortable but determined. After the initial awkward greetings, Sheila asked to speak with Emma privately. The two women walked down to the shoreline while Mark entertained the children and made strained small talk with Jason. When they returned 20 minutes later, something had shifted. Emma's expression was cautiously optimistic, while Sheila looked relieved. "Jason, we need to talk," Sheila said firmly. "All of us." What followed was a difficult but ultimately productive conversation. Sheila, it turned out, had been the driving force behind this visit. She had seen how Jason's work schedule and emotional distance were affecting Tyler, just as they had affected his first marriage. More importantly, she had recognized that her stepson needed his mother. "I'm not trying to replace you," she told Emma. "I just want what's best for Tyler. And I think that might be spending the school year here with you, with summers and holidays with us." Jason had been resistant at first, but seeing Tyler's happiness over the past 2 months, and facing the reality of his own limited availability, had softened his position. By the end of the day, they had the framework of a new custody agreement that would bring Tyler to live primarily with Emma, with regular visits to California. As they watched Jason and Sheila drive away, with plans for Tyler to return in just 3 weeks to start the new school year locally, Emma turned to Mark with wonder in her eyes. "Did that really just happen?" Mark squeezed her hand. "It really did. How are you feeling?" "Overwhelmed. Grateful." She looked at Tyler and Lily, who were already planning which bedroom in the blue cottage would become Tyler's. "Scared about suddenly being a full-time mom again." "You won't be doing it alone," Mark reminded her.